Welcome to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. We are your source for market intelligence, forecasts, and success strategies. This segment is brought to you by Plum Lending, online commercial real estate loans. Visit getyourplumloan.com. We have an incredible show for you today. We have Mark Grinis in Studio One. He's the Global Real Estate Investment Funds Leader for Ernst Young. Now, they just published the 2017 Global Market Outlook Report. We'll have a link to this report on the show website at creshow.com. It's great read, great information. And Mark, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us.
Michael, thank you.
So I'd like to ask you, there's a lot of great information in the report, and one of the things that I think a lot of people are curious about in the economy and in their business, and especially in commercial real estate, is the Trump impact, right?
Effect.
Yeah,
it's an adjective now.
Trump effect. So, he's talking about reducing tax rates, reducing regulations. What do you think is going to happen to commercial real estate? What will be the impact?
Look, I think it's been 98 days that he has been in office. So I think you have to kind of evaluate what has been said and versus ultimate policy. He and his administration have passed 38 executive orders. And so if you look at each one and say, okay, what does each one in isolation deal with commercial real estate, or doesn't it affect commercial real estate? By and large, they go into different buckets, but a lot of them are really pro-business, pro-growth, a lot of them. But a lot of them are pretty open-ended. Evaluate, determine, how to make something more efficient. Evaluate, study DoddFrank, consider. Obviously, there's a lot of the high profile of immigration and so on and so forth. But the stuff that affects us is a pro-growth. It's really oriented toward a 3% GDP growth. They're trying to really come up with policies that affect, good growth. Today we had the announcement of tax reform and the changes to the corporate tax rate that was announced just by Treasury Secretary this morning, and the expectation to cut the corporate tax rate to 15%. So that's a big headline. That's clearly a pro-growth. Also, to be able to repatriate dollars that are overseas at a 10% rate. Those are probably the headline events. Again, I think both of them are positive. But like anything in Washington, that's the opening bid. How it ultimately gets through the Commerce, the Houses of Congress, and ultimately the reconciliation process. We'll see where we land. I'm not sure it'll be 15. Maybe it'll start with a 2. But either way, anything that starts with a 2 is better than 35%.
For
corporate tax rate.
Okay, yeah. So what do you think the chances are there? I mean, that's pretty hard to do. Change tax rates. You can't tweet it, right? And it's happening.
You have to collect $4 trillion for the government to pay the bills. That's what you have to do. So as much as you say, I'm going to cut something from 35 to 15 or 20, there is you're going to create a hole that you got to fill. Now, dynamic scoring is like, okay, well, we're going to, as a result of a lot of productivity and activity, that will stimulate the economy and create more tax receipts, more real estate activity. True. The reality is there's a lot of Republicans that want to see some fiscal responsibility, and all of Congress for that matter. And so I think you're going to see a lot of people challenge what ultimately does that do to the budget and the deficit.
Right. So do you expect some reduction in tax rates, both personally and corporation-wise?
Yeah, okay. I do. Ultimately, some of us were around when the Reagan tax reform went through, which was gigantic to real estate. And, I think it's an area that has to be done carefully. There's a discussion of total expensing, meaning as soon as you buy a building, you get a full deduction. You would take away some of the interest deduction component. We're clearly a leveraged business. We rely a lot on debt for our capital transactions. If you have full expensing, you buy a building and you get to deduct everything that you invested in it, Could that create an incentive to buy a building just to offset some tax obligations? Is that a positive? That could clearly create dislocation in doing things just for tax purposes and less for economic purposes.
That didn't work well before '86. Right?
So, I think our industry is very sensitive to tax reform. The difference between the Reagan days and where we are today is there are a lot of people that really understand our industry, and I'm hopeful that all of the voices that are part of the various committees will carefully consider the facts and ultimately what lands for policy.
And you mentioned DoddFrank, and I think small banks also are a big part of real estate around the country for businesses to get loans and commercial real estate loans as well. Do you think there'll be some changes there that could impact commercial real estate?
It's one of the executive orders is very clear to study Dodd-Frank. One of my clients is a big investment bank, and I'll never forget the day he broke out his list of regulators and people that he has to respond to and the infrastructure it takes to respond to it. There is absolutely positive case of what is appropriate for Dodd-Frank. The question is there areas that we could make it a little bit more efficient and find a balance of protection for consumer protection and efficient execution of day-to-day business? I think a study of that looks at that and tries to find that right balance, if done right, will be very positive and positive for our business and lending.
And you mentioned that you think that there will be some reduction in corporate tax rates
Yes.
and personal income tax rates. So obviously, will you tell me, is that positive for retail? Is that positive for office? And of course, industrial doesn't need anything to be positive these days, it seems. But,
look,
people have more money to spend and companies have more money to invest, right?
It's, it will create it will put more capital in flow-through entities. Flow-through entities are good for real estate. I can see a number of different ways that it'll be beneficial. It certainly will be a pro-growth step, and the repatriation will certainly be a pro-growth step. I think both of them will be positive. We'll have to see exactly how it plays out.
So when it comes to the Trump effect, then your clients that you talk to every day, and you guys study it here at Ernst Young. So did your outlook for commercial real estate improve after Trump was elected, or did your idea of the good times extend a little further? Has there been any change there?
I think the most important thing is we have been through a very slow period of 2% or less GDP growth for a very long time. And these policies are, you could argue, late cycle stimulative policies. The only concern I think I have is do we get to a point where we start pushing interest rates? Does the handoff between monetary policy and fiscal policy is long overdue. It is very important that we legislate. The question is will the policies be constructive or overstimulative? We want interest rates to go up, but gradually.
So I'm getting a little, you seem to be optimistic, but also very cautious here about what the Trump effect is.
We have benefited. Yes, I'm very cautious about ultimately how policy lands. Very, very cautious about it.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what some stimulus to the economy does. I mean, from what I hear, the corporate world is sitting on a lot of cash that they could invest and create more jobs, and that hopefully we will have enough increased income for personal income and spending to make it all work out and get our tax money back, right?
Look, we are 10% of the economy. We are the tools, we are the factories, we are the businesses, we are the buildings that drive corporate America. As corporate America and the business cycle strengthens by potentially trillions of dollars coming back on shore, may not be that big, but close, That's a lot of liquidity. That's a lot of investable capital. I think that's positive, certainly positive to our industry.
Yeah, it's certainly exciting and something to look forward to. And you mentioned interest rates, watching the increase there. I'd like to get your opinion on what to expect and how it might impact commercial real estate. Stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show. Hey there, thanks for checking out the Commercial Real Estate Show. Don't miss a video of special interest to you. Be sure to subscribe below. And if you appreciate the videos, be sure and thank our sponsors. There's a link to more information about them in the description. For more videos, podcasts, and articles, check out creshow.com.